I now firmly believe that the increased radiation we're living in from radio and TV and radars and appliances compared to the turn of the century is contributing to our background rates of ill health.
The evidence shows that there's a causal link between the radiation and alteration of cellular tissue in the brain.
The research indicates that there is no significant scientific nexus between the use of cellular phones and a variety of different health effects that have been investigated since.
People who sell mobile phones are making a positive assertion of safety or zero risk that just cannot be done.
Since 1975 in the United States, there's been a 25% increase in brain tumors. Worldwide, there's been a 300% increase in brain tumors.
Over millions of years, life has evolved on an Earth where the natural background level of radio frequency radiation, or RFR, has been very low. Then, starting only 100 years ago, the explosion in wireless technologies like radio, TV, radar, and microwave has boosted our everyday RFR exposure levels by at least 10,000 times. Our bodies and each of the cells within them are like antennas, extremely sensitive receivers and emitters of electromagnetic radiation. Now they must function in a new electromagnetic environment that already has 10,000 times more RFR than the one in which they evolved. And today, a new wireless revolution is in progress, with the number of cell phones, communication satellites, microwave antennas, and cell phone towers multiplying daily. That means even more RFR exposure for all of us.
Electromagnetic fields are intrinsic to us. They are in us. We can measure them. Our heartbeat, you have the ECG. They are in us. They are us. They are our intelligence. They are our cells.
The body is an antenna. So you absorb the radiation in proportion to the resonance between your body size and the optimal areal. People find it difficult to understand how a very small magnetic field could change cell behavior when the Earth's magnetic field is so powerful. But the difference is the Earth's magnetic field in which our ancestors were living is a static field. When you take a field and you oscillate it, then cells that are changing with time have this oscillating field imposed on them, then that's what changes the behavior.
We have 23 studies now showing epidemiologically increased brain tumour in EMR-exposed people. 4 of them only show increases in cancer. 19 show statistically significant increase in cancer, and 5 show dose-response relationships. That is a causal set of data.
Where careful studies have been carried out near high-powered facilities, an increase in a wide range of cancers has been found. The most prevalent is leukemia, and a whole range of leukemias, from myeloid leukemias, lymphatic leukemias. But the class of leukemias is often found. It's found in military personnel who are exposed to radar and radio. It's found in ham radio operators. It's found in children who live near a transmission tower in Hawaii.
What is adequate evidence for decision making? Well, it depends on who you are. For the scientist, in order to come up with conclusive scientific evidence, which is a very high standard of evidence, we're looking at almost 100% certainty that an effect occurs. But is this the right forum, and is this the right level of evidence that we need to make decisions if we are a city or county that is mandated to protect public health and safety under the state zoning codes? We don't need that much evidence at all, do we? You know, the legal standard may be something down here. Maybe we only have to be about 51% certain, you know, the more likely than not test. But we take action with less information and with less certainty. Now, under the California Environmental Quality Act, All we have to have is the potential for a significant impact, don't we? Anytime you see an environmental impact report, we're not looking for certainty of effect. 10 to 30% certainty is enough to take an action that is protective of public health. This is where we're operating when we talk about public decision making for cell siting, not over here. Do we have enough scientific evidence to be 10 to 30% certain that we may have an effect, and should we be careful? And do we do that for every other environmental constraint? You bet we do.
The United States permits some of the greatest levels of exposure to the human populations in the world. If you compare those standards to other countries in Europe and China and Russia, you will note that the standards are much lower. They're all looking at the same science base. So why is there such a difference?
The spectrum goes all the way from extra low frequency 60 hertz power fields that give us electricity all the way up through radio waves, microwaves, and the communication frequencies, and then on over into the visible light, and then further than that we're into ionizing radiation or X-rays and gamma rays. And in the old days we used to think only the ionizing radiation part of the spectrum was carcinogenic or had the potential to cause cancer. Well, we're finding that that was maybe too arbitrary a delineation, and now we're seeing that we may have carcinogenic effects down in the lower frequency ranges, and we're talking about power and we're talking about communication.
Each of these phones must meet stringent emission standards set by the FCC in concert with the IEEE and a number of the other engineering organizations. The levels that they meet are far below, the emission standards are far below any levels even close to causing any kind of a biological effect, much less an adverse health effect.
In the summer of 1998, I had taken a job working for a startup company that was manufacturing the next generation of cellular phones. I went to work for this company as the director of worldwide sales. After a couple months, we were issued these prototype cell phones. Most of the employees in the company were issued the phones, and we were told to use them and test them and evaluate them. That's what we did for several months. I used that phone daily. The phone is designed to be operated with your thumb in a one-handed fashion. Being right-handed, I always held the phone on my right side. In early 1999, I had a seizure that was later diagnosed as a cancerous brain tumor. A mass growing in my head that was 5.5 centimeters by 5.5 centimeters, about the size of a tennis ball. The speed with which the tumors can grow is amazing. Cancerous tumors are rated on a scale of 1 to 4, and 4 being the fastest growing tumor. And a grade 4 tumor can grow from the size of a grape to the size of a tennis ball in 2 months. And mine was graded between a 2 and a 3, so we're guessing that mine probably took somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 months to grow, which would coincide with about the period that I was using the cell phone. I now believe that the phone was the culprit in at least triggering my brain tumor to occur. My brain tumor occurred right on the right side of my head, right on the temple, right where I held the phone.
We've collected credible scientific evidence from around the world that reports study after study of health effect or bioeffect at lower than standard levels. If this bar represents the standard, what is allowable, look at where these studies fall in terms of health effects reported at lower levels. Sometimes if you just put this on in front of a decision maker and say, well, maybe we don't have conclusive evidence, but we have all these studies and they're all They're all talking about health effects down here, and here's the standard. You know, something must be wrong. Maybe we should be careful. Maybe we shouldn't put this in the middle of a school ground, or maybe we shouldn't put it in the middle of a residential neighborhood.
We found that cells inside the brain, after exposure to radio frequency radiation, have DNA damage. And these are so-called strand breaks. The DNA basically breaks up into pieces.
This is what's called a comet assay, DNA comet assay. The length of the comet tail there is quite long. All of those fragments represent broken DNA. Now what's important is that the FCC limit here is 1.6 watts per kilogram, SAR. Here we've only got 0.6 and here we've got 1.2. So these are still below standard. You know, conventional wisdom has that there should be no effect. They are clearly breaking DNA and or interfering with DNA repair.
In my experiment, I only expose animals for a short time. Now then the question is asked, what happens if you're exposed to radiation from, for example, from a cell tower? Of course, it's a long-term exposure. So the main question is, will the effect accumulate over time? Now there's some indication that they accumulate. So a long-term exposure to a low intensity may have the same effect as a short-term 1 or 2 hour exposure for high intensity.